Welcome to this week's Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield here on the Rural Radio Network. Another interesting week. We saw some better cash, but was it more a non-major? And how much is this better cash going to have an effect on our cattle producers? Still got some big profits, as we all know. We could have that discussion till we're blue in the face. The state of Missouri actually talking about a bill. We'll talk about that and JBS with that whole cyber attack, what they had to pay, that and a lot more. As Brad Kooima joins us, you can see him on the screen. He is with Kooima and Varlick out of Sioux Center, Iowa. So let's start out there. Some better cash, so at least we can start out maybe on a little bit positive news.
Oh, I think so. I mean, it's after what's been, I don't know, I should have kept track, 7-8 weeks of 120, the sympathy bid or whatever you want to call it. There was a major that's paid 121 yesterday in both Iowa and in Nebraska. So that's something. There was a little bit of 122.50 to one of the smaller plants here yesterday, I guess. This morning I picked up 194 also to one of the regional packers. So yeah, that's encouraging. The other thing I thought that was just a little bit encouraging, though you have to kind of really read between the lines, Susan, is that I thought it felt like a couple of the majors anyway. One in particular seemed to be a little closer to the knife. And it wasn't so much this week, okay, I'll let you buy 200 head, and then they're gone again for the week. Now you see me, now you don't. A couple of these outfits seem to be willing to go a little deeper, albeit they were still trying to buy the cattle for about 120, but showing a little more of a willingness to buy them. And in some cases, actually, we're going to pick the cattle up next week, which I know I'm searching here for a little tiny bit of better news, but that's it. Otherwise we've been sitting at 120 and feeling like we completely lack any leverage, right?
Well, we've been talking so much about this profitability that's been happening on one end of the spectrum versus the other. And states like Missouri and even those in Washington, D.C. seem to suddenly be taking notice of what's happening in the countryside.
Well, as you know, I've been engaged both at the Iowa Cattlemen's level and at the National Cattlemen's Association level with this issue for a long time. Really, for me, it started in 2016. But to say, I think where the business end of this thing is right now in the last 2 months in particular, I don't know that I've ever felt the inferno of utter disregard, despair, disgust, take your words. People are livid. Okay. So you had Representative Hartzell yesterday in Missouri drop his version of, some sort of more fairer price discovery bill. There are things okay about this bill. There are things that aren't tough enough, again, in my view. To me, you got to have a couple of real constants in this. And if we're going to get this regulatory solution, one is 14 days. And another is that we have to hold both the regions and the individual packers and the packing, that particular site. We have to hold all of those accountable to a certain level, a number of cattle, in my opinion, that they have to negotiate for. Obviously, as a secondary thing, I'd like to see the library of formulas, but that's not going to fix this disparity between what the producer's getting and what the packer's getting out the back door of his place.
As you take the overall picture, though, about what's been happening, could we be turning a corner when it comes to profitability for our producers?
Well, in terms of political awareness, I think we're turning a corner. But to say short term, I'm a cattle feeder,
right,
and hedge some of the cattle. Do I get it done perfectly? Nobody does, and I'm a broker, right? So non-hedged cattle that I sold this week, calves that did it all, grow 3.59, convert a 6.1, for those of you that know what that means, and the cattle lose $84 a head. So at the same time, every pot load that goes down the road is making $40,000 to $50,000 per load for the packer. Now, I don't know. For me, it's. I've said it before, but it seems to me like even Scooby-Doo could figure out that maybe there's something going wrong between those two ends of the deal. And now you're getting some pushback from the consumer end. It was interesting to me when I had that short interview with CBS, that was every question they wanted me to answer was, well, what about the poor consumers? You have to pay more now since the cyber attack happened, yada, yada, and I tried to steer it as best I could. Well, a little, but the problem is that the guy that's raising the cattle is still not benefiting at all, and in fact, it's another problem because we lost another 45,000 cattle those 2 days when JBS couldn't kill them. So the level of understanding when you get to a big city like that. The one guy asked me on that deal, Susan. He said, "Hey, ask him what he's talking about when he said meat, because I always get my meat from the grocery store." No kidding, you can't make it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you're talking to some of the people that are outside of our industry, I think you have to understand that they don't understand. So we got to coach them up, get some education done.
So then that leads to my next question about JBS. We saw the news break late on Wednesday evening that they paid $11 million for this cyber attack. So the average person, $11 billion, that's a lot of money, $1 million out there.
Certainly is to me. This is an odd time we're living in, Susan. Certainly this kind of criminal behavior and with the ease that they seem to be able to pull it off is absolutely disdainful. Now, whether we should pass the hat, probably not. I just did a little rough figures. If you're making $1,250 a head, killing 25,000 cattle a day, that's a third of a day, 11 million out of that. So I don't want to discount the fact that it's against the law. It's wrong. But the kind of dollars we're dealing with in this industry is pretty staggering.
So looking at the grain versus feeder prices, and as we see weather continue to be an issue with drought and so many cattle being sold, I think there's 1,000 cow-calf pairs that left North Dakota because of all of this at a sale barn. There's a lot of fingers that are in this pot affecting profitability for these guys in the coming days and weeks.
Without a doubt. And things that are, not the traditional, what are they bidding? What's box beef worth? Are we current? Stuff like that. So we had a grain report today at 11, of course, and everybody's heart about stops at 11 to see if it's going to be something, because if it's a big radical move, it certainly will affect feeder cattle. We're certainly watching this rain that, not just for the Corn Belt, but for some of the Dakotas. Now, by the way, some areas of North Dakota caught a huge rain. Some areas caught, a pretty nice rain, 2 and 3 inches. There's places that actually it came too fast, 5, 6, 7, 8. I talked to a guy that said he had over 8 inches of rain in western North Dakota. So, some rain in the grass country. I hope they get it. I hope they get it for their own livelihood's sake. I hope they get it also from the standpoint of the market, because it'll hold off some of these breeding stock. There's feedlot, or there's sale barn after sale barn. Fort Pierce got a great big pair sale too this week. Rugby, North Dakota had a big pair sale this week, which is horrible for those guys that raise them. So I think that we have to pay attention, because some of these cattle are going to move early if it stays that dry. It doesn't create cattle, but it moves them a little bit around from when they're going to be fat. If this continues, I may have to dial back my enthusiasm for the fourth quarter. I've been pretty friendly for the fourth quarter.
Right.
If we keep moving those cattle a little early, I may have to dial that back a little bit, but I'm not there yet.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Brad, for joining us this week.
You got it.
That is this week's Cattle Call. Just a reminder, commodity futures and options do involve substantial risk of loss. They're not suitable to all investors. That's the Cattle Call on the Rural Radio Network.